Atabaliba, more commonly known in Western histories as Atahualpa, was the last sovereign emperor of the mighty Inca Empire. But to his people, he was more than just a ruler. Haiwa Salivin, bridge between the sacred traditions of the Andes and the chaotic tide of European invasion. His story is one of betrayal, brilliance, and brutal resistance. And while history often reduces him to the man captured by Francisco Pizarro, the truth is far more complex and far more powerful. Because Atabaliba stood at the edge of a collapsing world and refused to go quietly. He was the flame that flickered before the fall, and in many ways, his fire never died. Born around the year 1502 in the great city of Quito, Atabaliba was the son of the Inca Emperor Huayna Capac and an Ecuadorian princess. His birth placed him at the center of two worlds, the imperial nobility of Cusco and the regional power of the northern Andes. This dual heritage would shape his destiny in profound ways. Though not born of the main royal wife, Atabaliba was deeply favored by his father, who stationed him in Quito to govern the northern provinces. There, he earned the love of his soldiers and the loyalty of local nobles. But when Huayna Capac died in 1527, likely from a European disease that had crept into the empire before the Spanish themselves, Oriva de Atabaliba found himself locked in a deadly succession crisis with his half-brother Huasca, who had been crowned Sapa Inca in Cusco. What followed was a brutal civil war that tore the Inca Empire in two. 4 years, Atabaliba and Huasca battled across the Andes, each claiming divine right to rule, but it wasn't just a personal feud, it was a clash of ideologies. Huasca, ruling from Cusco, represented the traditional religious elite and the central authority of the empire. Atabaliba, from the north, had the loyalty of battle-hardened generals and a vision of reform. His forces were more experienced, more aggressive, and more adaptable. By 1532, Atabaliba's armies had crushed Huasca's troops in a series of decisive battles, capturing and humiliating the Cusco-based ruler. Atabaliba was now unquestionably the most powerful man in South America, but his victory came at a terrible cost. As Atabaliba celebrated his triumph in the city of Cajamarca, a small band of strange foreigners was making its way into the highlands. Francisco Pizarro and his band of Spanish conquistadors had arrived not as diplomats, but as invaders. Though they numbered fewer than 200 men, they carried steel weapons, guns, horses, and a deadly confidence born of past conquests. Atabaliba, unaware of the full threat they posed, agreed to meet them. He did not march to Cajamarca with an army of war, but with a royal procession of thousands, unarmed and ceremonial. This was not naivety, it was custom. The Inca believed in diplomacy backed by divine authority. They had no frame of reference for the treachery that was about to unfold. On November 16, 1532, Atabaliba entered the plaza of Cajamarca, expecting negotiation. What he received was a massacre. Pizarro's men sprang a deadly ambush, slaughtering thousands of unarmed attendants in a matter of hours. Atabaliba himself was seized, taken hostage by men he outnumbered 50 to 1. The Spanish had no right to his empire, no claim to his throne-only steel, strategy, and stunning brutality. What followed was one of the most infamous acts of colonial greed in world history. While held captive, Atabaliba attempted to negotiate his release by offering a ransom unlike anything the world had seen. He pledged to fill a room with gold, floor to ceiling, over 24 tons of treasure. And he kept his word. Gold poured in from across the empire. Temples were stripped, sacred objects were melted down, The heart of the Andes was broken too by back its emperor. But it wasn't enough. The Spanish, driven by hunger for land and loot, never intended to let Atabaliba live. Despite receiving the ransom, they staged a mock trial, accusing the Inca of treason, heresy, and murder. It was a farce justice turned on its head. In July of 1533, Atabaliba was executed by strangulation. His final moments were filled not with fear, but with fury and resolve. The man who once ruled millions died at the hands of strangers, but in death he became a symbol of resistance, of betrayal, and of all that was stolen. And yet, the story doesn't end there. Though Atabaliba was gone, his spirit lived on in the rebellions that followed. In the flames of Vilcabamba, in the legends of Tupac Amaru, in every uprising against colonial rule across the Andes, his name was whispered in the mountains. His defiance echoed in the hearts of his people, and across the centuries, his legacy grew. Today, Atabaliba is remembered not just as the last Inca emperor, but as a tragic hero caught between worlds, betrayed by invaders and immortalized by history. He was a leader who fought to unify a fractured empire, who stared down death with dignity, and who remains a symbol of Andean pride and sovereignty. Let the world remember him not as a victim, but as a king, a warrior, a flame that still burns. Follow for more history they never taught us in school.